Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time, and not just for a casual tour. We're going to ancient Sparta. But forget the movie version with chiseled men in leather briefs shouting about glory. We're going somewhere far more intense, far more personal. We're going to experience what it was like to be a Spartan woman, where the definition of beauty was one of the most brutal and functional in human history. It had nothing to do with a pretty face and everything to do with your physical ability to produce a soldier for the state. Frankly, based on their standards, you might not even survive the first day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first sensation isn't warmth. It's not the soft, loving embrace you might expect. It's a shock of cool air on your wet skin. You've just arrived in the world, a wriggling, screaming bundle of potential, but your journey has already begun. Before you even have a name, before your mother's milk has properly soothed your first cries, you are being prepared for your first, and most important, test. Think of it as the most high-stakes job interview imaginable, one you didn't even apply for. You are wrapped in a rough spun cloth, not gently, but efficiently. The hands that hold you are not your mother's. They belong to a midwife, a woman whose face is a mask of stern concentration. She lifts you from the birthing room, a dark, private space, and carries you out into the world. The sounds of Sparta are muted, but sharp the distant clang of bronze. The rhythmic marching of feet on a packed earth road. The clipped, no-nonsense stones of Laconian Greek. There's no cooing, no celebration, just a sense of purpose. You are being carried to a place called the Lesche, a sort of public meeting hall. This is where your fate will be decided. You are brought before a group of men, the elders of your tribe, the council known as the Jerus III. They are old, their faces etched with the lines of countless hard seasons on military campaigns. They don't look at you with the tenderness of grandfathers. They look at you with the discerning eye of a farmer inspecting livestock, or an artisan examining a piece of timber for flaws. Their gaze is a physical weight. They take you, passing you from one pair of gnarled hands to the next. They turn you over, stretching your tiny limbs, running their fingers along your spine, checking the shape of your head. They are searching for imperfections, a crooked leg, a misshapen shoulder, a weak or whimpering cry, any sign that you are not the physically perfect specimen. This is the cornerstone of Spartan society eugenics, state-controlled and mercilessly efficient. Your body is not your own. It is a future asset for the state of Sparta. Your primary value is your potential to grow into a strong, healthy woman capable of bearing strong, healthy sons. Historians still debate the precise checklist these elders used. How perfect did you have to be was a minor blemish overlooked? Or was any deviation from the ideal a death sentence? We don't have their official rulebook. What we know comes from writers like Tudorsh, who described the process with a chilling matter of factness. The decision rested entirely with these elders. This is a critical detail that separates Sparta from, say, Athens and other Greek city-states. The father had the right to decide whether to raise a child or expose it. It was a private, family tragedy. Here, in Sparta, it's not your father's choice. It's not your mother's. It is a calculated, bureaucratic decision made by the state. Your very right to exist is a matter of public policy. You feel the tension in the air. A moment stretches into an eternity. Your entire future hangs on this silent, clinical appraisal. If you pass, you are deemed worthy. You are a good investment. You will be returned to your mother, handed back with a curt nod that says, "This one will do." Your life can begin. But if you fail, there is another path. The elder would simply shake his head, and you would be taken away again, this time on a different journey. A quiet, one-way trip to a deep chasm on the slopes of Mount Teget-Os, a place they called the Apiotete, the place of rejection. There, you would be left, returned to the wild. It wasn't seen as murder, but as a refusal to invest in faulty equipment, the harsh, unsentimental pruning of the population to keep the Spartan stock strong. A thick finger prods your ribs. You let out a powerful, angry wail. The sound echoes slightly in the stone hall. One of the elders grunts a sound of approval. Your cry is strong. Your limbs are straight. You have passed. You are carefully wrapped again and handed back to the midwife. The journey home feels different. The air seems a little less cold. When you are finally placed in your mother's arms, her embrace is your first true comfort. But deep in your nascent consciousness, a lesson has been seared. You are here because you were permitted to be. Your worth, from the moment of your birth, is conditional, and you will spend the rest of your life proving that the elders made the right choice. The comfort of your mother's arms is a fleeting memory. Like a warm patch of sun on a cool day, your world expands, but it doesn't get softer. Your nursery is the courtyard of your house, a space of hard-packed earth, stone walls, and a perpetually watchful sky. This is where you spend your days, and your childhood unfolds in a way that would baffle a girl from Athens or Corinth, while she might be sitting with her mother, learning the delicate art of weaving or listening to myths. You are engaged in a different curriculum entirely. You have no dolls. The concept is foreign. A little clay figure to dress and cradle, what a waste of time. A doll teaches tenderness, domesticity, a focus on adornment, all qualities considered useless, even detrimental, to a future mother of warriors. Your toys are a reflection of your purpose. You have smooth, heavy stones that fit satisfully in your small palm, perfect for practicing your throw. You have sticks, not for drawing in the dirt, but for mock combat with your siblings or the neighbor's children. Your games are races from one end of the courtyard to the other, wrestling matches that end with one of you pinned, laughing and breathless, in the dust. Scraped knees are not a cause for alarm, they are a sign of effort. Dirt under your fingernails is not something to be scrubbed away in shame, it is evidence of a day well spent. Your mother doesn't rush to soothe your falls with kisses. Instead, she watches, her expression unreadable. If you cry too much over a minor tumble, you might receive a sharp word of admonishment. Get up. A little pain is nothing, but if you take a hard fall, roll, and jump back up ready for more, you might turn around. Approving nod. That nod is worth more than any sweet treat or gentle word. It's a confirmation you are on the right path. You are strong. Your education in these early years is physical, relentless, and informal. The famous Spartan state training system, the eugenics, is mandatory for boys from the age of 7. They are wrenched from their families, unsent to live in barracks. Their lives a brutal regimen of discipline and hardship. But what about you? This is a point historians still puzzle over. Did girls have their own formal, state-run eugenics? The ancient sources are frustratingly vague. Some scholars argue for a parallel, though less harsh, system. Others suggest that a girl's training, while compulsory and standardized, was managed within the community and family. For you, it doesn't feel like a formal school, it just feels like life. There are no classrooms, no set timetables posted on a wall, but the routine is just as rigid. Several times a week, you and the other girls your age gather in a designated field. An older woman, perhaps the wife of one of the city's officials, acts as your instructor. She is not a gentle teacher, she is a coach. She pushes you to run faster, to throw the javelin further, to leap higher. She teaches you the fundamentals of wrestling: leverage, balance, how to use an opponent's weight against them. Here, you get a taste of the unique clothing that will earn Spartan women a curious reputation across the Hellenic world. You wear a simple woolen tunic called a peplos. It's basic, functional, and, most importantly, not sewn all the way down the side. This little allows for a freedom of movement unimaginable to other Greek women, who were often swaddled in restrictive layers of linen. It's this practical garment that will later lead Athenians to cheekily call you phenomerid's thigh flashers. To them, it's a sign of lax morals. To you, it's just practical. How are you supposed to sprint and lunge if your clothes are binding your legs together? You see your brother's lessons less. When you do catch a glimpse of them, they seem different, harder, quieter. They are being systematically stripped of their individuality and forged into cogs in the Spartan war machine. You, too, are being forged, but for a different, though equally vital, role. Your body is the raw material, and the constant physical stress is the hammer shaping it. This childhood isn't about happiness or self-discovery. It's about indoctrination. You are being programmed, muscle by muscle, breath by breath, to value strength above all else. You learn that pain is temporary, that exhaustion is a sign of progress, and that the needs of Sparta outweigh your own comfort. There are no stories of gentle goddesses or romantic heroes at bedtime. Instead, you hear tales of heroic mothers who sent their sons to battle without a tear, of women who shamed cowardly men, of the glory that comes from sacrificing for the state. You are being taught that your womb is a shield, and your duty is to produce the men who will carry the real ones. The mud, the calluses on your hands, the ache in your young muscles, these are not the byproducts of childhood. They are the tools of your trade. You start to ask questions, perhaps not out loud, but in the quiet moments between strenuous drills. Why are your days filled with running and wrestling, while girls in other cities are learning to weave? Why is your food so plain, your clothes so simple? The answer, when it comes, is not a philosophical treatise. It's a name, a legend that permeates every aspect of your life. Lycurgus. This name is spoken with a reverence usually reserved for gods. Lycurgus was the legendary lawgiver, the architect of your entire world. You hear stories about him from the older women, from the men on the rare occasions they speak of history. They say he traveled the world to Crete, to Ionia, maybe even to Egypt, observing how other societies worked, and he came back disgusted. He saw luxury that led to weakness, wealth that created division, and laws that served the rich instead of the state. He concluded that it was all a recipe for decay. So he set out to build something different, something stronger, a society that was, in its essence, an army. He didn't just write new laws, he completely re-engineered Spartan life from the ground up. He banned gold and silver coinage, replacing it with clumsy iron rods that were deliberately difficult to use and impossible to hoard. He made everyone eat their meals together in public messes, the Syssidia, to eliminate private luxury and foster a sense of brotherhood. He created the Agoge for boys, turning child rearing into a state-run production line for soldiers. But Lycurgus, the stories say, understood a crucial truth: society is only as strong as its next generation, and strong soldiers could not be born from weak mothers. This is where you come in. While other Greek thinkers like Aristotle would later argue that women were naturally inferior, a sort of deformed male, the Spartan system, for all its brutality, held a different, more pragmatic view. Your role wasn't seen as inferior, just different. You were the other half of the equation of state survival. Therefore, you too had to be subject to the state's radical redesign. This is why your childhood is the way it is. Lycurgus believed that a woman who spent her days indoors, weaving and worrying about cosmetics, would become soft, and a soft body, in his view, was like infertile soil incapable of producing a strong crop. So he prescribed a regimen of physical education for girls that was nearly as rigorous as the boys. He wanted you to be formidable. He wanted your body to be a well-honed instrument, primed for its ultimate function, procreation. Of course, the figure of Lycurgus himself is shrouded in mystery. Modern historians are in a constant, lively debate about whether he was a real person at all. Was he one man who single-handedly revolutionized a society, or is he a mythical founder figure? A composite character to whom all of Sparta's unique traditions were later attributed. Some scholars suggest the Lycurgan reforms were not a sudden revolution, but a gradual evolution over several generations, a series of responses to specific crises, like the constant threat of revolt from the vast enslaved population, the Helots. The Helots are a shadowy presence in your life. They are the ones who work the land that officially belongs to your family, the ones who do the menial labor that frees you up for your state-mandated training. They outnumber you and your fellow Spartans by a massive margin, perhaps 7-1. The constant fear of a Helot uprising is the dark engine that powers the entire Spartan system. It's the ultimate why. Why the brutal training, why the obsession with military perfection, because you are a small, the leech ruling class, living on a permanently simmering volcano of resentment. Every Spartan man must be a soldier, and every Spartan woman must be a mother of soldiers, because the survival of your world depends on it. A strange but telling detail of the Lycurgan system was its attitude towards jealousy. The lawgiver, according to the writer Xenophon, thought it was ridiculous that men would take such care in breeding their dogs and horses, seeking the best sires for their stock, but would then lock their wives away and insist on being the sole father of their children, even if they themselves were old or infirm. He allegedly encouraged a form of wife sharing, where an older man might invite a strong young warrior to impregnate his wife to produce a better child. Whether this was common practice or just an idealized theory is another topic of endless academic argument. For you, though, it reinforces the core lesson: your body, your marriage, your children, none of it is truly private. It all belongs to the grand, state-sponsored project of survival. Then the architect of that project, the ghost who haunts your every foot race and wrestling match, is Lycurgus. The courtyard games of your early childhood soon give way to something more formal, more demanding. The soft, rounded limbs of a toddler have stretched and hardened into the lean, sinewy form of a girl. You are maybe 7 or 8 years old, and now your training truly begins. The informal gatherings in the field are replaced by a more structured routine on the Dioromos, the communal racetrack. Your first real training session is a shock to the system. You are used to exertion, but this is different. This is organized, relentless, and competitive. The sun is not yet high in the sky, but the air is already buzzing with energy. Dozens of other girls are here, all ages, shapes, and sizes, from girls your age to young women on the cusp of marriage. They are all dressed in the same practical peplos, their bare legs and arms gleaming with a thin sheen of olive oil. The instructor, a sharp-eyed woman with muscles that seem carved from wood, lines you and the other new girls up. Her voice is like the crack of a whip. Faster, your heels should be kicking your backsides. She barks as she leads you through your first set of sprints. The first run is exhilarating. The second is tiring. By the fifth, your lungs are burning as if you've swallowed hot coals. Your side is stitched with a fiery cramp. You want to stop, to double over and gasp for air, but a glance at the other girls stops you. No one else is quitting. Their faces are masks of grim determination. To stop would be to show weakness, and to show weakness is the greatest sin. So you push on. Your breath comes in ragged sobs. Your legs feel like lead. This is the first lesson of the Dioromos. Your body can do more than your mind thinks it can. You are being taught to push past the comfortable limits, to find a new reserve of strength you never knew you had. After the running comes the throwing. You are handed a discus, a heavy circle of bronze that feels impossibly unwieldy. The instructor demonstrates the technique: the spin, the release, the follow-through. Her movements are a fluid explosion of power. The discus soars through the air, landing far down the field with a satisfying thud. Now it's your turn. You try to mimic her, but the heavy disc wobbles in your grip. Your spin is clumsy, and your throw is pathetic. The discus clatters to the ground just a few feet in front of you, A ripple of laughter goes through the older girls. Your cheeks burn with shame. The instructor is on you in an instant. Are your arms made of boiled noodles? Grip it. Feel the weight. Become the weight. She doesn't coddle you. She corrects you, her hands roughly adjusting your stance, her voice a constant, critical commentary. You try again, and again. Your shoulder begins to ache. A deep, throbbing pain. But slowly, painstakingly, you start to get the feel of it. The throws get a little longer, a little stranger. Then comes the javelin. It's lighter than the discus but requires more precision. And finally, wrestling. You are paired with a girl of similar size. There's no soft mat, just the hard-packed earth of the training ground. The goal is simple: throw your opponent to the ground. It's a confusing, flailing mess of limbs. You grab. She pushes. You try to tip her. She shoves you off balance. You end up on your back in the dust more times than you can count. The wind knocked out of you. Your skin scraped and dry. This is not about aggression or violence for its own sake. Wrestling, for a Spartan, is the ultimate physical education. It teaches balance, strength, and strategic thinking. It's a physical chess match. You learn to read your opponent's body, to anticipate their moves, to exploit a momentary lapse in their concentration. A bizarre but interesting tidbit of Spartan life is their relationship with music. You might think this warrior culture would have no time for the arts, but you'd be wrong. Music was integral to your training. However, it wasn't for entertainment. The music you learn is rhythmic, martial, and powerful. You are taught songs and choral chants that you will perform at religious festivals. The rhythmic stamping of feet and the harmonized voices were seen as another form of training, instilling discipline, unity, and a sense of order. It was practice for moving together, thinking together, and acting as one. The precision of a choral dance was considered a reflection of the precision of a phalanx on the battlefield. Historians often wonder about the psychological impact of this upbringing. Was it empowering? Did it give Spartan women a sense of confidence and physical self-possession, unknown to their cloistered Athenian counterparts, or was it a form of trauma? A systematic suppression of individuality in favor of a state-imposed ideal? The truth is likely a complex mix of both. As you walk home from the dear Omos that first day, every muscle in your body screams in protest. You are caked in a mixture of sweat, oil, and dust. You are more exhausted than you have ever been. But alongside the pain, there's a new feeling. The flicker of pride. You survived. You didn't quit. You look at your hands, already starting to blister from the discus. They don't look like a child's hands anymore. They look like they're starting to become useful. The training ground, the Deromos, becomes the central stage of your young life. But there's a particular aspect of it that sets you, and all Spartan women, radically apart from the rest of the Greek world. It's the fact that much of this training is done in public, and often in the nude. The first time you're told to remove your peplos for exercise is a jarring moment. Even in Sparta's utilitarian society, you have a sense of modesty, but the instructor's order is matter-of-fact, leaving no room for debate. You look around, and the older girls are already shrugging off their tunics with a practiced indifference. Hesitantly, you do the same. The sun and air on your bare skin feel strange, exposing. You stand there, suddenly aware of your own body in a way you never have been before. This practice was a source of endless shock and fascination for other Greeks. In Athens, a respectable woman would scarcely leave her house, let alone appear in public without being fully covered. The idea of young women exercising naked, alongside or in view of men, was seen as the height of decadence and moral collapse. Visiting dignitaries and traders would bring back scandalized stories of Spartan women, describing them as wild and immodest. The Athenian playwright Euripides even blamed the scandalous freedom of Spartan women for what he saw as their lustful and adulterous nature, famously writing, "A Spartan girl could not be chaste even if she wanted to." But for you, standing there on the dusty field, the purpose is entirely different. It's not about exhibitionist, it's about pragmatism and ideology. Firstly, it's practical. Clothing is restrictive. Without it, you can run more freely. Your limbs have a greater range of motion for throwing the discus or javelin. Secondly, it's a great equalizer. Nudity strips away any pretense of status that might be conveyed by clothing. Everyone is the same. Their worth, judged only by the strength and fitness of their bodies. Most importantly, it's a statement. The Spartan state is proclaiming that there is nothing shameful about the healthy, strong female body. In fact, it should be celebrated and displayed as a symbol of the city's vitality. Your body is not a private, hidden thing. It is a public asset, a testament to the success of the like-erg-in system. By exercising in public, you are all participating in a civic ritual, demonstrating the collective strength of Sparta's future mothers. You quickly get used to it. The initial self-consciousness fades, replaced by a focus on the task at hand. You are more concerned with beating your rival in a foot race than with how you look. You learn to see your own body, and the bodies of the other girls, not as objects of desire, but as instruments of performance. You can see whose muscles are most defined, who has the powerful legs of a runner, who has the strong shoulders of a thrower. It's a purely functional aesthetic. Historians continue to debate the exact context of this public nudity. Were boys and girls exercising naked in the same space at the same time? Or were their training sessions separate? The ancient sources, like Plutarch's Xenophon, are ambiguous. They confirm the nudity but are less clear on the co-ed arrangements. Some scholars believe they trained separately, but in public view, others argue that, in the spirit of Lycurgus's reforms aimed at removing artificial barriers, they may well have trained together, to foster a sense of camaraderie and to make men and women comfortable and familiar with each other, all in the service of producing better offspring. A lesser-known, but fascinating, part of these public displays were the ritual dances. At certain religious festivals, like the Gymnopaedia, the festival of naked youths, you and the other girls would perform choral dances. These were not simply pretty performances. They were complex, physically demanding routines that showcased your athletic prowess. You would sing songs praising the heroes of Sparta and, sometimes, taunting the bachelors who had not yet married. It was a form of socially sanctioned public commentary. Imagine a festival where part of the entertainment is a troupe of incredibly fit young women singing about what a loser you are for not getting married and doing your civic duty. It was a powerful to loud social pressure. So while an Athenian father might lock his daughter away to protect her virtue, your father watches you compete with pride. He is not ashamed to see your body, strong and capable, on public display. He sees in you the future of his line and the future of Sparta. Your sweat and strength are far more beautiful to him than a powdered face or an elaborate hairstyle. You are not a delicate flower to be sheltered. You are a prized sapling, being cultivated in the open sun, so that you may grow into the strongest possible tree. All this intense physical activity requires fuel, but if you're imagining a modern athlete's diet carefully balanced with lean proteins, complex carbs, and recovery shakes, you need to think again. Your diet is as rugged and no-nonsense as every other aspect of your life. Spartan cuisine is legendary, but for all the wrong reasons. The very word Spartan has come to mean austere and lacking in comfort, and your daily meals are a testament to that. You eat what your family is allotted from the public land, the Kaleros, which is farmed by the Helots. There's no elaborate cooking, no delicate spices imported from the East. Food is for sustenance, not for pleasure. The goal of your diet is not to delight the palate, but to build a sturdy, efficient body. It's high in energy, low in luxury. Your breakfast, if you have one at all, is simple. Maybe a piece of barley bread, a dense, heavy loaf that you have to chew thoroughly, and a handful of figs or some other seasonal fruit. Lunch is much the same. The centerpiece of your diet is a coarse barley meal, supplemented with whatever else is on hand: cheese made from goat's milk, olives, and fresh or dried fruit. The most famous or infamous dish in the Spartan culinary repertoire is the black broth, or melissiomas. You don't have to eat this every day. It was primarily a staple for the men in their communal messes, but you are certainly familiar with it. The recipe alone is enough to make you appreciate your simple barley bread. It consisted of boiled pig's blood, pork, salt, and vinegar. That's it. It sounds, and by all historical accounts was, absolutely disgusting. One story, probably apocryphal but widely told, claims that a visitor from Sparta, a Greek city famous for its luxury, tasted the black broth and said, "Now I understand why the Spartans do not fear death." For you, as a growing girl, the focus is on providing enough calories to sustain your rigorous training. You eat more than your Athenian counterparts, a fact noted by ancient writers. While they were often given smaller portions than boys, your rations are substantial. The state wants you to be well fed, not skinny. Thinness would be seen as a sign of weakness, an inability to sustain a pregnancy. Your ideal physique is not slender, it's robust. Think shot putter, not marathon runner. Historians and archaeologists try to reconstruct the specifics of the Spartan diet by analyzing botanical remains and ancient texts. But it's a tricky business. One of the ongoing debates is about the level of dietary equality. While the Lycurgan system aimed to make everyone eat the same simple fare, did the elite find ways to supplement their diet? It's likely that a king or a wealthy landowner had access to better food, more meat from hunting, for example, than a poorer Spartan citizen. The ideal of perfect equality was probably more of an aspiration than a reality. A weird, and perhaps counterintuitive, part of your food culture is wine. The Spartans, like all Greeks, drank wine, but their attitude towards it was, characteristically, unique. They drank it diluted with water, as was the custom, but they were also obsessed with the dangers of drunkenness. To teach the youth about the foolishness of intoxication, they would reputedly force the helots to drink undiluted wine and then bring them into the public messes to display their drunken, stumbling behavior. It was a form of negative reinforcement, a living lesson. For you, it's another reminder of the Spartan obsession with self-control and mastery over the body's base desires. Drunkenness is a loss of control, and a loss of control is weakness. You learn not to complain about the food. Complaining is a sign of softness. You eat what you are given, gratefully and efficiently. You develop a palate that is not refined, but resilient. You can stomach the coarse bread and the sharp cheese without a second thought. This diet, devoid of refined sugars and excessive fats, combined with your constant exercise, creates a specific type of body. It's a body with very little fat, defined by dense muscle, hardened by labor. It's not beautiful in any way a Corinthian courtesan would understand. There is no soft, pale skin, no delicate curves. Your skin is tanned by the sun. Your muscles are visible through it. Your hands are calloused. It is the beauty of a perfectly crafted tool, honed for a single, vital purpose. Your body is a temple, not to Aphrodite, but to the state itself, and you fuel it accordingly. Life isn't all muscle and sinew, though, while your physical education is paramount. It's a misconception to think that your mind is left completely fallow. The Spartan state, for all its focus on the body, understood that a citizen needed a basic intellectual toolkit to function. Your education in soft skills, however, is as pragmatic and purpose-driven as your physical training. Sometime after you've mastered the basics of running and wrestling, you begin another kind of lesson. You and a group of other girls gather not on the Diromos, but in the shade of a portico or a quiet public building. Here, an older woman or a male instructor who isn't on active military duty teaches you to read and write. This in itself makes you highly unusual in the ancient world. In many other Greek city-states, literacy for women was rare, a luxury reserved for the very wealthy or for courtesans. But in Sparta, it was considered a practical necessity. You don't learn to read by studying the epic poems of Homer or the philosophical works of Ionia. Your reading materials are far more direct. You learn your letters by tracing them in sand or on a wax tablet. You practice by reading public inscriptions, state-sanctioned poems praising Spartan valor, and perhaps excerpts from the laws of Lycurgus. The goal is functional literacy. You need to be able to read messages, manage household accounts, and understand public notices. When the men are away at war for months or even years, it is the women who run the estates, managing a large agricultural property, overseeing the helots, and keeping the household solvent requires more than just physical strength. It requires a sharp, organized mind. Writing is taught with the same lack of frills. You learn to form the letters of the Greek alphabet. Your hand clumsy at first with the stylus. The style of speaking and writing you are taught is famously blunt and to the point. It is called laconic, after the region of Laconia, where Sparta is located. A laconic phrase uses the minimum number of words to express a maximum amount of meaning. You are taught that flowery language and long-winded speeches are signs of a muddled mind. Why use 10 words when 3 will do? The classic example is the supposed response of the Spartan Epihors to a letter from Philippi I of Macedon. After he had conquered much of Greece, he sent a message to Sparta saying, "If I enter Laconia, I will raise Sparta to the ground." The Spartan officials sent back a reply with a single word "if." This laconic wit is a prized skill. It's a form of intellectual sparring. At the communal meals on public gatherings, you listen to the adults, and you learn that a quick, sharp retort is valued as much as a well-thrown javelin. It demonstrates intelligence, confidence, and a refusal to be intimidated. Beyond reading and writing, you also have your music and dance. As mentioned before, this was not a recreational art form. This was civic training. You learn to play the lyre, not for solo performances, but to accompany the choral singing and dancing. You memorize the songs and the intricate steps for the religious festivals. This training in music and dance, which historians like Plato noted with approval, was about instilling Cosmos a sense of order, harmony, and discipline. When you move and sing in perfect unison with 50 other girls, you are physically embodying the Spartan ideal of the collective over the individual. One question that scholars still debate is the extent of this intellectual education. Was it limited to this basic, functional level, or did some Spartan women engage with more complex ideas? The evidence is thin. We have no philosophical treatises or historical works written by Spartan women. Their voices come to us almost exclusively through the filter of male, often non-Spartan, authors. However, the confidence and articulateness attributed to them by writers like Plutarch suggest that their education, while not academic in the Athenian sense, produced women who were anything but simple-minded. A curious, and very Spartan, aspect of your education is learning to endure and inflict verbal jabs. At some festivals, it was customary for the girls to sing songs that not only praised heroes, but also publicly mocked and criticized men for perceived faults, such as cowardice or, as we've seen, failing to marry. This ritualized public critique was a way of enforcing social norms. It taught you to be bold in your speech and also thick-skinned enough to take criticism. It's hard to imagine a society where teenage girls are officially encouraged to publicly roast underperforming bachelors, but it was part of the fabric of your life. It was your duty not just to bear strong children, but also to act as a guardian of Spartan values, using your sharp tongue as a tool to keep the men in line. Your mind, like your body, was being weaponized for the good of the state. As you grow older, the playful wrestling matches of your childhood evolve into something far more serious. A spirit of competition is woven into the very fabric of your training. This isn't just about making you strong in a general sense, it's about making you stronger than the girl next to you. In Sparta, honor time is the ultimate currency, and it must be earned for you and your peers. That honor is won on the training ground. The competition is constant and formalized. There are regular contests in running, discus, javelin, and wrestling. These aren't just for fun, they are public spectacles, often held during religious festivals. Your performance is watched by everyone: the elders, the city officials, the men, and the other families. A victory brings immense pride not just to you, but to your entire family. To have a daughter who is the fastest runner or the strongest wrestler is a sign that your family is producing superior stock. It's a public validation of your genetic worth. The pressure is immense. Before a major competition, the air is thick with anticipation. You size up your opponents. There's Alara, whose legs are like coiled springs, making her nearly unbeatable in a short sprint. There's Lyra, who, despite her smaller size, is a genius at wrestling, using leverage and speed to topple larger girls. You know their strengths and weaknesses as well as you know your own. You've been training alongside them and competing against them for years. They are your comrades, but today they are your rivals. Imagine standing at the starting line of the Diormos for the final race of a festival. The crowd is a blur of faces. You can pick out your father, his expression stern but his eyes fixed on you. Your mother is there, her posture rigid with hope. You've oiled your skin. Your muscles feel alive and ready. The signal is given. You explode from the start, your mind blank, focused only on the pounding of your feet and the rhythm of your breath. You can hear the other runners, their footsteps a frantic drumbeat beside you. In the final stretch, it's just you and Delora. You push harder, digging deep into that reserve of all your training has built. You lunge for the finish line, your chest burning. Winning is a heady feeling. You are brought forward, perhaps crowned with a wreath of olive leaves. The praise of the crowd washes over you. Your father clasps your shoulder, and in his eyes, you see a flicker of genuine, unguarded pride. This is the payoff for all the sweat, the pain, the monotonous diet. You have brought honor to your name. But losing is a bitter pill. There are no participation trophies in Sparta. Second place is just the first loser. If you perform poorly, you face not just your own disappointment, but a sense of public shame. You have let your family down. You will be subject to the criticism, both spoken and unspoken, of your peers and instructors. This harsh, binary outcome, glory or shame, is a deliberate part of the system. It's meant to weed out mediocrity and push everyone to their absolute limit. Historians have long debated the social dynamics created by this intense competition among girls. Did it foster a spirit of sisterhood, a shared identity forged in strenuous effort, or did it create a society rife with jealousy, resentment, and brutal cliques? The truth is likely somewhere in between. You would certainly form close bonds with the girls you trained with every day. You share a unique experience that no one outside your circle could ever understand. But the constant pressure to be the best must have created fierce rivalries. One of the more peculiar, and frankly brutal, competitive, that ancient sources mention involved cheese. At the sanctuary of Artemis, or Thea, there was an altar. Cheeses were placed on it, and boys would have to try to steal them while being whipped by officials. It was a test of courage and endurance. While this specific trial of valor was for boys, it highlights the Spartan love for creating extreme, and sometimes bizarre, tests of mettle. It's possible, though not explicitly recorded, that girls had their own, less violent, but still highly competitive ritual contests. The ultimate prize in this competition is not a leafy crown. It's a good marriage. Your reputation as an athlete directly impacts your marriage prospects. The strongest, fastest, and most formidable young women are the most sought-after brides. A young Spartan man, looking for a wife, is not looking for a pretty face or a gentle demeanor. He is looking for a partner who has proven herself to be of superior physical quality. His family and the state elders who advise on these matches are essentially looking at you as a potential breeder of thoroughbreds. Your athletic victories are your resume. They are a public advertisement of your genetic fitness, a promise that you are capable of producing the strong sons that Sparta desperately needs. Your success on the Dioromos is a direct pathway to fulfilling your ultimate purpose in the eyes of the state. Your world is small and intense, a bubble of discipline training and state-mandated purpose, but occasionally, this bubble is pierced by outsiders. A diplomat from Corinth, a trader from a coastal city in Ionia, or even a curious writer from Athens might visit Sparta. Through their eyes, you get a glimpse of how utterly strange your life appears to the rest of the Hellenic world. You see them in the agora, the marketplace, or watching the public exercises. They stand out immediately. The men are often dressed in brightly colored, finely woven tunics, their hair styled, their speech more elaborate and less direct than the clipped laconic you're used to. The few foreign women who might accompany them are even more alien. They are shrouded in layers of fabric, their faces sometimes veiled. They move tentatively, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. They look at you and your peers striding confidently in your practical peplos, your arms and legs bare, your skin brown by the sun as if you are creatures from another world. You can almost hear their thoughts, and you've certainly heard the stories they tell when they go back home. The most common reaction is scandal. The thigh flashing is a constant source of gossip. They see your freedom of movement and your public presence not as signs of strength, but as a shocking lack of modesty and self-control. To an Athenian man, whose own wife and daughters work kept in seclusion in the women's quarters Guinea-CEM, your visibility is deeply unsettling. It upends their entire social order, which was based on the strict separation of male and female spheres. Their writers, like the historian Herodotus and the playwright Euripides, immortalized this view. They wrote of Spartan women as being overly dominant, ruling over their men. Aristotle, one of the most influential thinkers in Greek history, was particularly critical. He believed that the relative freedom and influence of Spartan women were a major flaw in the city's constitution. He argued that this license of the women led to greed and luxury, which is ironic, given Sparta's famously austere lifestyle and was ultimately a cause of the state's decline. He saw your confidence as arrogance and your role in managing the estates as an unnatural usurpation of male authority. You and your fellow Spartan women would probably find these criticisms baffling, even laughable. You are not trying to be men. You are fulfilling the role assigned to you, a role deemed essential for the survival of the state. Managing the household while the men are dedicated to military matters isn't a power grab, it's a logical division of labor. Your public training isn't immodest, it's a public duty. A lesser known, but equally interesting, foreign reaction was one of grudging admiration, particularly from some philosophers. Plato, for example, while not a wholesale admirer of Sparta, was intrigued by the idea of women receiving an education and contributing to the state in a meaningful way. In his famous work, The Republic, when designing his ideal society, he proposed that the female guardians should receive a similar education to the males, including physical training. It's highly likely he was inspired by the Spartan model. He saw the logic in not letting half the population's potential go to waste. One of the great debates among historians is how to interpret these outside sources. Are they accurate portrayals of Spartan life? Or are they funhouse mirror reflections distorted by the cultural biases of the authors? When an Athenian writer describes Spartan women as loose, is he reporting a fact? Or is he expressing his own culture's anxieties about female autonomy? We have to be detectives, reading between the lines, constantly aware that our primary witnesses are outsiders and, in some cases, rivals. You might encounter a foreign visitor who is brave enough to speak to you. Their questions would seem absurd. Aren't you cold dressed like that? Does your husband approve of you wrestling? Why are you not at home? Leaving your laconic reply might be as simple, "This is our way," or a more pointed, "We are the only women who give birth to men." That famous retort, attributed by Plutarch to Gorgo, the wife of King Leonidas, perfectly encapsulates the Spartan woman's self-perception. It is a statement of immense pride. It says, "Our way of life, which you find so strange, is the very thing that produces the unparalleled warriors you all secretly fear and admire. We are not like you, and that is precisely why we are superior." The whispers and the shocked stares of the outsiders don't shame you. They reinforce your sense of exepolitioness. You are a Spartan, they are not, and that makes all the difference. The years of training have sculpted you. The sun has permanently tanned your skin, and your muscles are no longer the soft, undefined tissue of a child but the hard, functional bands of an athlete. You are now in your late teens, perhaps 18 or 19. In other Greek cities, you would have been married for years, likely since you were 14. But Sparta, as always, does things differently. Your readiness for marriage and motherhood is not determined by age, but by your physical peak. There is no specific ceremony, no formal declaration that you are now a woman. Instead, it's a shared understanding. The instructors on the training ground push you with a new intensity. Your victories and losses in competition carry more weight, and the eyes of the city's men and elders appraise you with a new purpose. You are no longer just a promising girl, you are a candidate. A candidate for the most important duty a Spartan woman can perform, bearing the next generation of soldiers. Your entire life has been a long, grueling preparation for this moment. The endless running was to build your stamina for childbirth. The wrestling was to make your body strong and resilient. The discus and javelin throwing were to develop your core strength. Even the coarse, simple diet was designed to create a robust vessel, free from the weaknesses that Spartans believed luxury induced. The state has invested nearly 2 decades of training in you. Now, it's time for that investment to pay off. The prevailing Greek medical theory of the time, influenced by thinkers like Hippocrates, believed that the mother's and father's seeds both contributed to the makeup of a child. The Spartans took this idea to its extreme. They believed that 2 strong, healthy parents at the peak of their physical condition would produce the strongest possible offspring. This is why Spartan men typically married much later than other Greeks, usually around the age of 30, after they had completed their most intense military training. And it's why you are only considered marriageable now, in your late teens, when you are believed to be at the height of your physical power. This biological calculus is the only standard that matters. No one is assessing your dowry, as your family's land is a fixed allotment from the state. No one is overly concerned with your facial beauty or charm, though these things were surely noticed. The primary question is, does she look like she can produce a champion? Your athletic record, the visible strength of your body, and your family's reputation for producing strong children are your primary qualifications. The pressure intensifies. You are acutely aware that you are being watched. At the public festivals and religious dances, you perform with a heightened sense of purpose. Your movements must be not just skillful, but powerful. You must radiate health and vitality. This is your final, most important competition. It's a silent, city-wide contest for the best genetic match. Historians still debate the degree of choice a young woman like you had in this process. The ancient sources, written by men, focus on the male perspective and the state's interest. Did you have any say in who your future husband would be? Could you refuse a match? It's unlikely you had a formal power of veto. Marriages were almost certainly arranged by your father in consultation with the groom's family and possibly with the input of state elders. The decision was based on eugenic principles, not romantic love. However, a fascinating and little-known aspect of Spartan society suggests you weren't entirely powerless, unlike their Athenian counterparts, who were segregated and rarely interacted with non-family men before marriage. You grew up alongside the boys at your city. You trained in the same public areas, competed in festivals, and engaged in ritualized public banter. You knew the young men of Sparta, not as strangers, but as individuals. You knew who was brave, who was strong, who was respected. It is highly probable that informal preferences and attachments formed. While you couldn't just pick a husband, your opinion on the existing relationship with a potential suitor might have been a factor in the final arrangements. It was a system that, for all its rigidity, allowed for a level of familiarity between sexes that was unique in Greece. As you stand on the training ground, perfecting your javelin throw one last time, you feel a sense of finality. Childhood is over. The long, demanding apprenticeship is complete. You are no longer just a daughter of Sparta. You are about to become a mother of Sparta. Your body, so long honed into a weapon of health and strength, is about to be deployed in the only war that truly matters to the Spartan state, the war against demographic decline, the war for its own survival. The beautiful body you were forced to build is now ready to fulfill its brutal, impossible function. The decision has been made. Your father has come to an agreement with the family of a young man. You are to be married. But this is Sparta, so forget any romantic notions of a courtship, sweet words, or gifts. The process is more like a strategic acquisition than a romance. It's a eugenics-based matchmaking service, and the primary client is the state. Your future husband is likely a man around 30 years old. He is a full citizen, a soldier who has survived the Agoge and now lives and eats in a communal military mess. The SYS Sidian. You probably know him, or at least know of him. You've seen him at festivals, perhaps competed in the same public spaces. You know his reputation. Is he a trembler, a coward who has shown fear in battle, or is he an Irene, a respected young warrior and role model for the boys in training? His public standing is as important as your physical fitness. A state desires to match proven strength with proven valor. The matchmaking process is guided by a simple, ruthless logic. The goal is to combine the best genetic materials available. Your family's history is scrutinized, as is his. Have your brothers been successful warriors? Have his sisters produced strong children? It's an informal pedigree check. Plutarch writes that the lawgiver Lycurgus wanted marriage to be a matter of producing the finest children, and this principle guides every decision. Your feelings on the matter are secondary, if they are considered at all. The concept of marrying for love, a cornerstone of modern romance, would be seen as frivolous and dangerously selfish. A personal emotional connection is a distraction from the true purpose of the union, procreation for the benefit of Sparta. This doesn't mean that affection couldn't grow between a husband and wife, but it was not the foundation of the marriage. The foundation was duty. You might be wondering if there was any room for physical attraction in this cold calculus. The answer is yes, but in a very Spartan way, the attraction was not for delicate features, but for signs of health and strength. A man would look at you and see the power in your shoulders from years of throwing the javelin, the strong legs of a runner. He would see a body capable of enduring childbirth and producing robust offspring. This was the Spartan definition of hot. Likewise, you would see in him a man whose scars were not signs of weakness but of survival, whose physique was honed by a lifetime of military discipline. It was an attraction based on function and proven resilience. This brings us to a fascinating, still debated aspect of Spartan society. What if a marriage didn't produce children? The pressure to procreate was immense. If a couple remained childless, the fault was often laid upon the woman. However, the pragmatic Spartans had a solution that was, once again, shocking to other Greeks. According to writers like Xenophon and Plutarch, it was not unheard of for a husband to arrange for another man, a younger, stronger, more virile warrior to sleep with his wife in order to produce an heir. The child would be considered the husband's legal offspring, and the biological father would have done a service to his friend and to the state. This practice, which some historians call eugenic adultery, highlights the degree to which the state's need superseded private sentiment. The husband's jealousy and the wife's personal fidelity were as important than the production of a new Spartan citizen. Whether this was a widespread, common practice or an emergency measure, used only in rare cases, is a source of ongoing academic argument. The textual evidence is sparse and open to interpretation, but the very existence of this idea shows how completely the state co-opted the institution of marriage. Your womb was not just your husband's, it was a resource to be deployed in the most efficient way possible for the good of the community. You don't have a bachelor party. There are no pre-wedding feasts. The arrangements are made quietly, efficiently. You are informed of the decision. You accept it, because that is what you have been trained to do. You are not a romantic heroine, you are a soldier about to begin a new tour of duty. Your personal desires, your hopes for a companionate partnership, are irrelevant. You are about to enter into a contract. Your part of the contract is to provide a healthy body. His part is to provide the seed of a warrior. The beneficiary of the contract is Sparta, and in this transaction, you are the most valuable asset. Your wedding day arrives, but it feels nothing like a celebration. There are no white dresses, no flowers, no joyous procession through the city. The Spartan marriage ritual is a clandestine, strange, and deeply symbolic affair that feels more like a capture than a union. The ceremony begins in the evening, under the cover of darkness. The first thing that happens is a radical transformation. Your long hair, which you have grown your whole life, is shaved off, down to the scalp. A bridesmaid, or perhaps your mother, takes a bronze razor and unceremoniously shears away the locks. The feeling of the cool air on your newly bare head is a shock, a physical symbol of your transition from one state of being to another. You are being stripped of your girlhood identity. Next, you are dressed in a man's cloak, a heavy, dark tunic called a chiton, and you are even given a pair of men's sandals. You are left alone in a darkened room, lying on a simple pallet on the floor. You are not a bride in the traditional sense. You are a disguise, an imitation of a man, waiting in the dark. Meanwhile, your new husband is carrying out his own part of the ritual. He has eaten his evening meal as usual with his comrades in the military mess. He must show no sign of anything out of the ordinary. After the meal, he must slip away from the barracks, unseen. This is a test of his stealth and cunning. Getting caught would bring shame and ridicule. He has to sneak through the city, like a thief, in the night, to the house where you are waiting. He finds the room. There is no tender greeting, no exchange of vows. The whole encounter is brief, furtive, and functional. After the consummation of the marriage, he does not stay. He cannot. He must sneak back to the barracks and rejoin his sleeping comrades before dawn. As if he never left. He is a soldier, and his primary loyalty is to his unit, not to his new wife. This bizarre ritual has fascinated and puzzled historians for centuries. What is the meaning behind it all? There are several theories. One is that it is a symbolic marriage by capture. In ancient, more primitive times, it might have been common for men to literally abduct their brides from neighboring tribes. The secretive ritual could be attained. Symbolic reenactment of this ancient practice. Another theory, and perhaps a more compelling one, is that it was designed to manage the transition into married life in a way that didn't disrupt the all-important male military structure. By making the encounter secretive and brief, the state ensured that the young man's focus remained on his duties as a soldier. Marriage was not supposed to make him soft or domesticate him. His primary home was the barracks. His primary family was his unit. A wife was a secondary, nocturnal responsibility. And what about your role? In all this, the shaved head and the men's clothing are subjects of much scholarly debate. Some historians argue it was meant to make the transition easier for the young groom. Remember, he has spent his entire life, from the age of 7, exclusively in a male environment. The sudden intimacy with a woman might have been seen as daunting. by making you look less female. The ritual might have been intended to ease this psychological barrier. It's a strange, almost clinical approach to human sexuality. Others suggest the shaved head was a rite of passage, a clean break from your buried life, similar to how a new military recruit might have their head shaved. A fascinating, little-known detail is that this secrecy was expected to continue for some time. It wasn't just a one-night affair. For the first several years of the marriage, this was how you would see your husband through these stolen, nocturnal visits. He would live in the barracks until he was 30, and only then could he move home and live with his family full-time. Plutarch even claims that some Spartan men had fathered several children before they ever saw their wives' faces in the daylight. While this is likely an exaggeration, it highlights the extreme separation between a husband and wife in the early years of their marriage. So you lie there in the dark, your scalp prickling, dressed in the clothes of a man you barely know. You are now a wife, but you are a wife in the most peculiar sense imaginable. You have no partner to talk to, no shared home, no public acknowledgement of your new status. You have simply participated in a state-sanctioned, biological transaction. The strangeness of the night is a powerful lesson. It teaches you that your marriage, like every other part of your life, is not about you. It is about Sparta, and your role within. It will continue to be defined by duty, distance, and the darkness. The morning after your vows or wedding night, nothing and everything has changed. You wake up in the same house, but you are no longer just a daughter. You are a wife, a join. Yet, your husband is nowhere to be seen. He is back in his barracks, sharing a morning meal with the men he has lived with since childhood, behaving as if nothing of significance occurred. This is the beginning of your new reality, a weekend-style marriage. Except it's more like a stolen moments in the dark arrangement. For the first several years of your marriage, until your husband reaches the age of 30 and is released from his full-time barracks duty, this is the pattern of your life together. He is a visitor in your home, a phantom who comes and goes under the cover of night. You do not share meals. You do not wake up next to each other. You do not engage in the daily, mundane intimacies that build a partnership. Your relationship is defined by its absences. This enforced separation was a deliberate policy, a core tenet of the Lycurgan system. The goal was to keep the men hardened and focused on their military lives. Domesticity was seen as a corrupting influence, a slippery slope to softness. By keeping husbands and wives apart, Lycurgus, according to Xenophon, believes their desire for one another would remain high, and that this physical longing would lead to more vigorous, and thus healthier, children. It was a strange form of applied psychology, treating human relationships like a controlled experiment in animal husbandry. Your daily life, therefore, doesn't revolve around your husband. It revolves around your duties. You continue your physical training, though perhaps with less intensity than before. You are expected to maintain your fitness, as your primary role is still ahead of you. More importantly, you begin to take on the responsibilities of a Spartan matron. You are now the mistress of a household, or an ecos. This is not a small, simple home. It is an entire economic unit, centered on a plot of agricultural land. The Galeros, that was assigned to your husband's family by the state. This land is the source of your family's wealth and sustenance, and because your husband is living in the barracks, its management falls entirely to you. This is where Spartan women wielded a level of economic power and autonomy that was unheard of in the rest of Greece. While an Athenian woman was confined to her home, you are out in the world, managing an estate. You oversee the helots who work the fields. You decide what to plant, when to harvest. You manage the household budget, track the yields of grain and olives, and ensure that your family's contribution to your husband's communal mess is delivered on time. Failure to provide this contribution could result in a citizen losing his status, so your role as a manager is absolutely critical. This level of responsibility makes you a formidable figure, You are not a sheltered wife. You are a CEO of a small agricultural enterprise. You have to be intelligent, organized, and authoritative. The very survival of your family citizen status rests on your shoulders. Aristotle might have complained about this female influence, but from a practical standpoint, it was the only way the system could work. With the entire male citizen body operating as a full-time army, someone had to run the economy. That someone was you. The question of the emotional toll of this marital arrangement is something ancient texts don't address, but we can speculate. Did this enforced distance create a sense of independence and self-reliance? Almost certainly. Did it also create a profound sense of loneliness and emotional detachment? It's hard to imagine it wouldn't. While modern society prizes emotional intimacy as the core of a marriage, your marriage is built on a foundation of separation. A lesser-known but crucial aspect of this system was its impact on property rights. Uniquely in the Greek world, Spartan women could inherit and own property in their own right. By the classical period, a significant portion of Sparta's, in some sources, like Aristotle, claim as much as 2/5 was owned and controlled by women. This came about through inheritance. If a woman's father had no male heirs and through dowries that remained the wife's property. This economic power gave you a level of security and influence that your Athenian sisters could only dream of. You were not entirely dependent on your husband for your survival. So your life settles into a strange rhythm. Days are for managing the estate, maintaining your physical health, and interacting with the other women of your community. Nights are for the possibility of a brief, furtive visit from the man who is your husband. It's a fractured existence, split between public duty and private secrecy. You are both married and, in a practical sense, single. You are a partner in a state-mandated procreative enterprise, waiting for the moment when that enterprise bears fruit. The distance between you and your husband is not a flaw in the system, it is the system itself, working as intended. With your husband living in the barracks and the day-to-day management of the estate firmly in your hands, you step into one of the most powerful and controversial roles. In the ancient Greek world, the Spartan matron, in a city where all the citizen men are soldiers, you and the other women like you are the de facto rulers of the domestic and economic spheres. You are, in a very real sense, the queen of your own little kingdom. Your domain is the oikos, the household and its associated land. This isn't just a house, it's a sprawling enterprise. Your primary responsibility is to ensure its productivity. Early in the morning, while an Athenian wife would be confined to her quarters, you are striding across your land, your presence commanding respect and a little bit of fear. You direct the work of the helots, the state-owned serfs who are bound to the land. The relationship with the helots is the most fraught and dangerous aspect of your life. They are ethnically distinct from you, a conquered people primarily from Messon IA forced into servitude. They farm your land, tend your livestock, and perform all the manual labor that allows your society of warriors and mothers to exist. They outnumber the Spartan citizens by a huge margin, and the threat of their rebellion is a constant, low-level hum beneath the surface of daily life. The entire Spartan military machine is designed, first and foremost, to keep the helots in check. Your management of them must be a careful balancing act. You need to be firm and authoritative to ensure the work gets done, but not so cruel as to incite a localized revolt. You learn to project an aura of unshakable confidence, even if you sometimes feel isolated and vulnerable. You are a member of the ruling class, and you must look and act the part at all times. You are responsible for the logistics of the entire estate. You track the stores of grain, wine, and olive oil. You oversee the production of wool and simple textiles for the household's needs while elaborate weaving was disdained. Practical cloth was still necessary. You are the quartermaster, the accountant, and the chief operating officer. This role requires a sharp mind, excellent organizational skills, and a will of iron. This is why your childhood education in literacy and numbers was so important. You need to be able to read messages, keep ledgers, and calculate yields. You're laconic. No-nonsense communication style is an asset in giving clear, unambiguous orders. While the men are practicing battle formations, you are managing supply chains. Both are essential for Sparta's survival. This autonomy is what led to the stereotype of the domineering Spartan woman. Outsiders saw this power and were aghast. They saw you talking to men in public, giving orders, and managing finances, and they interpreted it as a world turned upside down. But for you, it is simply the logical order of things. With the men perpetually mobilized for war, who else would do it? Historians still debate the true nature of the Spartan woman's power. Was it genuine authority? Or was it simply delegated responsibility if your husband came home from the barracks? Could he overrule your decisions legally? He was the head of the household. But in practice, after years of you running the show, it's likely that a wise husband would defer to your expertise. This created a unique dynamic within Spartan marriages, one that was probably more of a partnership, albeit a strange, distant one than the master-servant relationship common in other Greek cities. A fascinating, and often overlooked, aspect of your role as a matron was your part in the ideological upbringing of your children. You were not just a manager of property, you were the first and most important teacher of Spartan values. It was from you that a young boy first learned the stories of Spartan heroes. It was you who taught him that glory in battle was the highest calling and that cowardice was the ultimate disgrace. You were the one who instilled the core belief that the state was more important than the individual. You are the guardian of the home front. You ensure the economic stability that allows the army to function, and you plant the seeds of the warrior ethos in the next generation. You are not on the front lines of battle, but you are a general in your own right, commanding a different kind of army. The image of you, standing on your land, directing the harvest, is just as iconic a symbol of Spartan strength as a hoplite standing in the phalanx. You are the immovable center around which the whirlwind of military life revolves. You are the queen not by blood, but by sheer, relentless competence. The initial phase of your marriage, with its strange nocturnal visits and daytime separation, has a single, unspoken purpose. Every month that passes without a sign of pregnancy, the pressure mounts. It is silent, ticking clock, audible only to you, but its rhythm is felt by your entire community. Your primary function, the very reason for your existence in the eyes of the state, is to conceive. This isn't a private hope between you and your husband. It's a public expectation. Your worth as a woman, which up until now was measured by your athletic performance, is about to be reassessed based on your fertility. Your strong body, the product of years of state-sponsored training, was never an end in itself. It was an application form. Now, the state is waiting to see if that application will be approved. The community is watching. The older women, the matrons who have already proven their worth by bearing sons, look at you with knowing eyes. Their expressions are a mixture of sympathy for the pressure you're under and judgment. Have you been maintaining your health? Are you living as a Spartan woman? Should every interaction is freighted with this unspoken question. Your own anxiety grows with each passing cycle. You start to question your own body. You have done everything right. You have trained, eaten the proper foods, and entered into a state-sanctioned union. Why has nothing happened? The fear of being barren is a cold dread that settles in your stomach. In Spartan society, infertility is not a medical condition, it is a personal failing, a betrayal of your civic duty. You see other young wives, married around the same time as you, beginning to show the first signs of pregnancy. You see the pride in their family's eyes, the subtle shift in their social standing. They are on their way to fulfilling their purpose. Their success makes your own perceived failure even more acute. The intense competitiveness of your youth doesn't end with marriage, it just moves into a new, more biological arena. The ancient world had a limited understanding of the science of reproduction, while the Spartans, with their eugenic theories, correctly intuited that both parents contributed to the offspring. The blame for childlessness was almost universally placed on the woman. If a field doesn't sprout, you blame the soil, not the seed. This deep-seated bias puts you in an incredibly vulnerable position. Historians debate what would happen to a marriage that remained childless for a long time. The sources are not explicit on a formal divorce process for infertility. However, given the immense social pressure, the consequences would have been severe. A barren woman was a failure. She occupied a space of profound shame and social limbo. This is where the reputed practice of eugenic adultery might have come into play. A husband, desperate for an heir to secure his Kale arrows and his lineage, might loan his wife to another man. From your perspective, this would be a deeply humiliating experience, a public acknowledgement that your union has failed in its primary objective. It reduces you to a mere vessel, your personal feelings on fidelity rendered irrelevant in the face of the state's demand for children. A little known but poignant detail of Spartan life relates to funerals. Uniquely, the Spartans were forbidden from putting names on gravestones. It was a reflection of their collective ethos. The individual was unimportant. However, there were only two exceptions to this rule. A man could have his name inscribed on his tomb if he died in battle, and a woman could have her name inscribed on her tomb if she died in childbirth. This exception is incredibly revealing. It tells you that society viewed dying in childbirth as the female equivalent of dying in battle. It was the ultimate act of sacrifice for the state. This places an immense, almost sacred, importance on the act of procreation. It is your battlefield, your moment of potential glory. But it also means that failing to even enter that battlefield by not conceiving is a form of civic failure. Every night, when you lie waiting in the dark, the hope is tinged with desperation. The brief, functional encounters with your husband are no longer just a strange marital duty. They are a series of high-stakes tests. You feel your body not as your own, but as a public trust that is failing to deliver on its promise. The countdown continues, and with every tick, the weight of an entire society's expectations presses down on you. Then, one day, it happens. The signs are unmistakable. The monthly rhythm of your body is broken. A new kind of feeling settles in, a mix of exhaustion and a strange, burgeoning vitality. You are pregnant. The news is not shared with giggles and joyful whispers. It is received with a quiet, profound sense of relief and solemn satisfaction. You have done it. You have crossed the first and most important threshold. Your body is not barren. The state's investment in you is about to mature. Your status in the community shifts almost overnight. The appraising, sometimes pitying, glances from the older matrons are replaced with looks of respect and inclusion. You are now truly one of them. You are no longer a candidate, you are an active participant in the great project of Spartan renewal. Your family, especially your mother and father, feels an immense sense of pride. You have upheld the honor of their line. Your pregnancy is not treated with coddling or excessive delicacy. You are not confined to bed or encouraged to rest all day. That would be seen as soft. The Spartan belief in the importance of physical fitness extends to pregnancy. You are encouraged to continue with moderate exercise, to walk, to keep your body strong and active. The logic is simple and unwavering. A strong, active mother will have an easier birth and a stronger child. The goal is to prepare for labor as you would for an athletic competition. You eat well, given access to the most nutritious food the estate can provide. Your diet of simple, wholesome fare is considered ideal for growing a healthy fetus. There is no indulgence, only a focus on providing the essential fuel for the task at hand. As the months pass, your body changes in ways you have only observed in other women. The hard, flat stomach you worked so diligently to maintain softens and swells. This physical transformation, which might be a source of anxiety in a culture that values slenderness, is a badge of honor here. Your growing belly is a public testament to your success. It's the most beautiful you have ever been by Spartan standards. The day of labor arrives. It is an exclusively female affair. The men are absent. You are attended by your mother, your female relatives, and a midwife, a tough, experienced woman who has seen it all. There are no medicines to dull the pain. Enduring pain is a cornerstone of your identity. You are expected to face the ordeal with the same stoicism and courage that a Spartan man is expected to show in battle. Your struggle is your agony, your contest. The moment of birth is the climax of your entire existence up to this point, and as the baby's first cries fill the room, one question hangs in the air. More important than any other, is it a boy? When the midwife finally cleans the infant and announces, "It is a boy, and he is strong," a wave of triumph washes through you, eclipsing all the pain and exhaustion. This is the ultimate victory. You have not just produced a child, you have produced a future soldier. You have given Sparta the most valuable gift a woman can offer. The birth of a healthy son solidifies your position in society in a way nothing else can. You are now a revered figure, a mother of a future warrior. You have fulfilled your biological destiny. Your husband, when he is told the news, will feel an immense sense of pride. His lineage is secure. His contribution to the state is manifest. Your marriage is now, finally, a success. Historians often discuss the immense pressure this boy or bust mentality placed on women, while the birth of any healthy child was a relief. The birth of a son brought a unique level of honor. The academic debate continues on whether the Spartans practiced female infanticide at a higher rate than other Greek cities. The ancient sources focus on the inspection of all infants for physical defects, but are less clear if the baby's sex was a factor in the elders' decision at the Lesche. However, it's undeniable that the cultural preference for male offspring was overwhelming. You hold your son in your arms. He is perfect. His limbs are straight. His cry is lusty. He will soon be taken for his inspection by the elders. But you are not afraid. You can see the strength in him. He is a true Spartan. You look at him, and you see not just a baby, but a continuation. He is a link in an unbroken chain of warriors stretching back to the time of Lycurgus. And you, his mother, are the one who forged that link. In this moment, you are everything a Spartan woman is meant to be. What if the midwife, after cleaning the newborn, had announced, "It is a girl"? The wave of triumphant relief would be replaced by something more complex, more muted. It's not a disaster, but it is a disappointment. It is a secondary prize in a contest where only one prize truly matters. The birth of a daughter is not a cause for shame, like the birth of a weak or deformed child would be. She is, after all, healthy and strong. She will pass the elders' inspection at the Lesche. She will be allowed to live. But her birth does not bring the same level of honor and celebration as the birth of a son. Your husband, your family, the community, everyone would feel a quiet sense of anticlimax. The primary goal has not been achieved. You will have to try again. Your daughter's life will follow the same path as yours. She is not a future warrior, but she is a potential mother of warriors. Her value is one step removed. She is an investment in the next generation, a vessel for future potential. The state needs women to continue the cycle, so her birth is still a net positive for Sparta. She will be raised with the same rigor, put through the same physical training, and instilled with the same values. She will be another link in the chain, but her role is to forge the links, not to be one of the shining links herself. You will love her, of course. The maternal bond is not entirely erased by civic ideology, but your love will be filtered through the lens of Spartan expectations. You will look at her and see not just your child, but a future candidate for the grueling test of Spartan womanhood. You will be her first coach, her first instructor in the art of being strong. You will teach her not to cry over scraped knees. to push her body to its limits, to value strength above all else. You are perpetuating the system that has defined your own life. This brings up a significant point of historical debate: the demographics of ancient Sparta. The Spartan system, with its intense focus on producing a narrow elite of perfect male warriors, was, in the long run, a demographic disaster. The population of full Spartan citizens, the Sparta, was always small, and it steadily declined throughout the classical period. Several factors contributed to this constant warfare: the high standards for infanticide, and the rigid marriage system. The intense preference for male heirs likely played a role as well. While the sources don't explicitly state that healthy female infants were exposed simply for being female, some historians argue it must have been a factor. If a family already had a daughter or two, and their Kale arrows could only support a certain number of children, they might be tempted to reject a subsequent daughter in the desperate hope that the next child would be a boy. This is speculative, of course, but it aligns with the brutal logic of the Spartan system. The state needed soldiers more than it needed mothers of soldiers. A strange but telling detail from Spartan inheritance lore reveals the complex value of daughters. If a man died with no sons but with a daughter, she became what is known as an Kale arrows, or an heiress. She didn't inherit the family land Kale arrows in her own right, but she became the conduit through which it was passed. She was required to marry her nearest male relative, usually an uncle or a cousin, to ensure the property stayed within the lineage. In this specific circumstance, a daughter became incredibly valuable, a key piece in a puzzle of property and lineage. This shows that a daughter's worth was always contextual, always defined by her relationship to men and property. So, you hold your baby girl. She is healthy, strong, and a full-fledged future citizen. You have succeeded in your duty of procreation. You have not failed, but you have not won the grand prize. The quiet pressure to try again, to produce a son, will begin almost immediately. Your daughter is a promise of the future, but it is a son who secures the present. As you raise her, you will be preparing her for the same life of pressure, training, and biological destiny that you have lived. You see your own past, and her future, reflected in her small, perfect face. The cycle begins anew. There is a darker possibility, a shadow that haunts the edges of every pregnancy. What if the months of waiting, the ordeal of labor, culminate in a different outcome? What if the child is born weak, sickly, or with a visible physical deformity, or worse? What if you are unable to conceive at all? Month after month, year after year, this is the ultimate nightmare for a Spartan woman, the path to public shame and social oblivion. Let's imagine the first scenario. You give birth, but the baby's cry is weak. The midwife's examination reveals a crooked limb, a misshapen skull, or some other sign of imperfection. The atmosphere in the room turns from tense anticipation to cold, hard dread. There is no joy, no relief. There is only the grim knowledge of what comes next. The baby will be taken to the elders at the Lesche, and this time, the inspection will not be a formality. They will confirm the flaw. The verdict is swift and merciless. The child is not worthy of being a Spartan. It will be taken to the Apothe, the place of rejection, and left to die. You are not even allowed to grieve openly. To mourn excessively for a child deemed unfit by the state would be a sign of personal weakness, a selfish attachment that puts your own feelings above the good of the community. You are expected to accept the elder's judgment with stoic resolve. You have failed in your duty. Your body has produced a faulty product. The shame is immense and clings to you like a shroud. You have not only failed to contribute to Sparta's strength, you have actively produced a weakness that had to be culled. The pressure to try again would be immediate and almost unbearable. Your next child must be perfect. Your reputation and your family's honor depend on it. Every subsequent pregnancy would be fraught with an almost pathological level of anxiety. Now, consider the other shadow: infertility. Years pass. Other women your age have to, even 3 children. Their sons are beginning their training, but you remain childless. The initial community pressure hardens into a quiet but firm judgment. You are barren. You are a failure. In a society where your entire value is predicated on your reproductive capacity, being infertile is a form of social death. You have no real purpose. You manage your husband's estate, but you have no heir to pass it on to. You are a dead end, a broken link in the ancestral chain. The social consequences are severe. You would be treated with a mixture of pity and contempt. You would be a walking symbol of inadequacy. At public festivals, where other women are praised for their strapping sons, you would be a figure of shame. The ritualized public taunts and criticisms, which you once dished out as a girl, might now be directed at you and your husband. This is where the state's brutal pragmatism could offer a humiliating solution. As discussed before, the practice of a husband allowing another man to impregnate his wife was a possibility. If your husband is a respected warrior, the state needs his line to continue. The problem, in their eyes, is you. The decision might be made that another woman should bear his child. This could take several forms. He might take a second wife. Although monogamy was the general rule, more likely, the informal arrangements would come into play. A young, fertile woman might be brought in to produce an heir. The historical evidence for the exact legal and social mechanisms for dealing with infertility is very thin. This is a topic of much speculation among historians. Did they have a formal concept of divorce on the grounds of barrenness? Plutarch mentions that one Spartan king, Ariston, was permitted to take a second wife because his first was barren. But this was a king, and special rules might have applied. For an ordinary citizen, the situation was likely managed through immense social pressure and informal arrangements rather than a formal legal process. A particularly cruel, though less discussed, aspect of this is the shame it would bring upon your parents. They raised a prized athlete, a woman who seemed the epitome of Spartan fitness. Your failure to conceive would reflect badly on them, as if they had produced defective goods. The shame radiates outwards, affecting your entire family. You are trapped. You are a citizen with rights. You can own property, but you have failed at the one non-negotiable task assigned to your gender. You exist in a liminal space, a part of the city but not fully contributing to its future. The strong, beautiful body you spent a lifetime building is, in the end, useless. It is a promise that was never fulfilled. This quiet, personal tragedy, played out in the full glare of public judgment, is perhaps the most brutal aspect of the impossible standard you were forced to live up to. The years pass. Your son, once a perfect infant approved by the elders, has been taken from you. At the age of 7, he was conscripted into the eugenics, the brutal state-run military school that transforms boys into soldiers. You see him only occasionally now, during public festivals or rare, supervised visits. Each time you see him, he is a little harder, a little leaner, a little more distant. The soft child you raised is being systematically erased, replaced by a cog in the Spartan war machine. You watch this process not with sadness, but with a fierce, unwavering pride. This is the purpose for which you bore him. Now he is a young man, perhaps 18 or 20. He has survived the eugenics. He is a full-fledged hoplite, a warrior at Sparta. He is about to go on his first real military campaign. The day of his departure is a solemn, pivotal moment. Other Greek mothers might weep, clinging to their sons, praying for their safe return. But you are a Spartan mother. Your role is different. You are the one who helps him with his armor. You hand him his heavy bronze shield, the aspis. It is large and concave, polished to a mirror shine. As you give it to him, you look him directly in the eye. There are no tears, no trembling words of fear. Instead, you speak the words that have become the most famous phrase attributed to Spartan women, a line that echoes through history. Either with this, or on this. The meaning is unequivocal. Come back victorious, carrying your shield. or come back dead. Carried upon it, there is no third option. Surrender, retreat, cowardice, these are fates worse than death. To lose one's shield in battle was the ultimate act of disgrace, because it meant you had thrown it away to run faster. A soldier's shield protected not just himself, but the man standing next to him in the phalanx. To abandon it was to betray your comrades. Your words are not a curse. They are a blessing. They are the final, most important lesson you will ever teach him. You are reminding him of his duty. You are releasing him to his destiny. You are telling him that his personal survival is less important than his honor and the safety of Sparta. This moment is the culmination of your life's work. The strong body you built, the healthy child you bore, the disciplined boy you raised, it all leads to this single, brutal transaction. This famous phrase is one of the most powerful examples of what historians call the Spartan mirage. It's an image of Sparta, largely created by outside writers like Plutarch, that presents a perfect, monolithic culture of unwavering, almost inhuman courage. Did every Spartan mother actually say these exact words? Probably not. It's likely an idealized representation of the Spartan ethos. But whether the words were spoken literally or not, the sentiment was absolutely real. It was woven into the fabric of your society. The debate among scholars is not about whether the sentiment existed, but about its psychological effect. Was this an expression of monstrous, unnatural cruelty, a mother sending her son to his likely death, or was it an act of supreme love and patriotism within their cultural context, empowering her son to be the best version of what his society valued? It's almost impossible for us to resolve this from our modern perspective. A lesser known, but equally chilling, aspect of a mother's role was her reaction to news from the battlefield. After a battle, the women would gather, waiting for the messenger. You would not ask, "Is my son alive?" You would first ask, "Was it a victory?" The fate of the battle was more important than the fate of your child. If the news was of a victory, there was public celebration, even for those whose sons had died. They had died for a winning cause. Plutarch tells stories of mothers who, upon hearing their sons had died bravely, would go to the temples with radiant faces to give thanks. Conversely, he tells of a mother who, when her son returned alive but as a trembler, a coward, took matters into her own hands and killed him herself. Well, this is almost certainly a dramatic exaggeration, a piece of moralizing propaganda. It illustrates the extreme ideology you were expected to uphold. You watch your son march away, joining the column of bronze and red cloaks. He doesn't look back. You do not wave. The transaction is complete. You have done your duty. Now, he must do his. You return to your home, to the management of your estate, with a heart that must be both full of pride and heavy with a silent, unaccompanied fear. But you will never let that fear show. You are a Spartan woman, and your strength must be as impenetrable as the shield while your son is marching to join. The waiting begins. Weeks, perhaps months, go by. Life on the estate continues. The rhythm of the seasons paying no mind to the anxieties of war. You manage the helots. You oversee the harvest. You maintain the rigid discipline of your household. But underneath it all, there is a constant, low-level tension. Every traveler on the road, every rumor from the north, could be the news you are waiting for. Then, one day, a messenger arrives. He brings news from the front. Sparta was victorious. A wave of collective relief and pride sweeps the city. The gods have favored you. The sacrifice of your warriors was not in vain. But then comes the second part of the news, the list of the fallen. The messenger reads the names, and your son's name is among them. He died bravely. He did not retreat. He fell in the line, protecting his comrades. He will be brought home on his shield. Your reaction is dictated by a script you have rehearsed your entire life. There is no wailing, no collapse into public grief. You hold your head high. Your expression is one of solemn pride. Your son has achieved the highest honor a Spartan man can attain. He has given his life for the state. You are now the mother of a hero. You have not lost a son. You have given a martyr to Sparta. You will be looked upon with a unique form of reverence and respect by the community. But what happens next? After the solemnities are over, you are now the mother of a dead hero, but you may also be the wife of a dead hero. If your husband has also fallen in his years of service, you are a widow. In most Greek cities, a widow's position was precarious. She was dependent on her male relatives for support. But in Sparta, your situation is, as always, different. Because you can own and inherit property, you are not left destitute. The Chaos arrows, the family land, now passes to the next male heir. If you have no other sons, it might revert to your husband's family line. But any private property or dowry you brought into the marriage remains yours. You have a degree of economic independence that provides a foundation of security. However, a Spartan widow, especially one who is still of childbearing age, is considered a valuable resource that should not go to waste. The state has an interest in you marrying again. You have proven yourself to be a successful mother, capable of producing strong offspring. Your eugenic value is high. Therefore, there would be strong social pressure and likely legal encouragement for you to remarry and continue producing children for Sparta. This practice of resource reutilization is a subject of historical debate. Were widows legally compelled to remarry? The evidence isn't clear, but the lawgiver Lycurgus was said to have instituted measures to encourage it. For example, men who remained unmarried or who married too late were subject to public shaming and legal penalties. It is highly likely that similar pressures were applied to eligible widows. Daigud Brudmar, to use a stark but accurate analogy for the Spartan mindset, should not be left fallow. Your potential new husband might be a man whose own wife had died or proven barren, or it might be a younger man who has not yet married. The goal is to create a new, productive, procreative unit as efficiently as possible. Your personal feelings of grief for your deceased husband or son are secondary to the civic imperative. A lesser known, but fascinating, aspect of Spartan society related to this is the state's view on male celibacy. Bachelors, known as agamos, were punished. At certain festivals, they were forced to march around the marketplace in the winter, naked, singing a song that detailed how they were being justly punished for disobeying the laws. Women were empowered to drag them around an altar and hit them. This shows how seriously the state took the duty of procreation. Every citizen, male and female, was expected to participate. As a proven, fertile widow, you would be seen as a key player in this system, and remaining single would likely not be a socially acceptable option. So, even in grief, you are still to love the state. Your mourning is a public performance of pride. Your future is a strategic decision. You might feel a profound sense of loss, a deep, private sorrow for the son you raised and the husband you knew. But you are not permitted the luxury of private grief. You are the Spartan woman. Your womb is a public asset, and as long as you are able to bear children, your duty is not yet done. Your life, as a Spartan citizen woman, is a bubble of privilege and pressure. You are at the top of a rigid social hierarchy, but all around you, living in the same territory of Laconia, are other women whose lives are vastly different. To truly understand your world, you need to glance sideways at these other women, the ones who are not part of the Spartan elite. They are the Perioikoi and, far more numerous, the Helots. First, you are familiar with the Perioikoi, which means those who dwell around. They live in the semi-autonomous towns and villages scattered throughout the Laconian countryside and along the coast. They are free people, not slaves, but they are not Spartan citizens. They have no political rights in Sparta. They cannot vote, hold office, or be part of the Spartan army in the same way your husband and sons are, though they may be called upon to serve in auxiliary roles. The Perio-Ikeo women live a life that is, in many ways, more Greek than yours. They are not subject to the brutal agoge or the state-mandated physical training. A Perio-Ikeo girl is likely raised at home, learning domestic skills like weaving and household management. Their marriages are private family affairs, not eugenic contracts overseen by the state. They are the artisans, the craftsmen, and the merchants of Laconian society, while you are forbidden from engaging in any form of commerce, as it is seen as beneath a Spartan citizen. The Perio-Ikeo run the workshops, forge the bronze for your men's shields, make the pottery, and conduct the trade that keeps the Spartan economy from being completely isolated. When you need something that your own estate cannot produce, it is from the Perio-Ikeo that you would acquire it. Their women live in a world that is a blend of Spartan influence and traditional Greek life. They are freer than an Athenian woman, by virtue of living in the Spartan sphere, but they do not carry the immense burden of procreative duty that you do. You might look at them with a mixture of disdain for their soft, non-martial lives and perhaps a flicker of something else, a curiosity about a life not dictated at every turn by the state. Then there are the Helots. The Helot woman is the foundation upon which your entire world is built, and her life is one of unremitting toil and subjugation. She is not a person in the eyes of the state. She is property, bound to the Kale arrows your family controls. She and her family belong to the land, and by extension, to you. A Helot woman's daily life is one of hard agricultural labor. She works in the fields from sunrise to sunset, planting, weeding, and harvesting the crops that you will manage and consume. She is the one who grinds the barley for your bread, presses the olives for your oil, and performs all the menial tasks you are forbidden to do. Her body is not honed for athletic competition. It is hardened by back-breaking labor. She has no rights, no protections. She can be beaten or abused with impunity. Her children are born into the same state of servitude. There is no inspection by the elders for them, no question of their worthiness. Their destiny is already written. They will be helots, just like their parents. Her relationship with you, the mistress of the estate, is one of power and deep-seated fear. You depend on her labor, but she is a constant reminder of the subjugation that underpins your freedom. The historical debate around the helots is vast. One of the key questions is their family structure. Were they allowed to form stable family units and marry as they pleased? It seems they were, largely because it was in the state's interest for them to reproduce and maintain their numbers to work the land. A helot woman's fertility was valuable, not for producing warriors, but for producing more laborers. A truly chilling and ballsy aspect of the Spartan-helot relationship was the cryptii. This was a secret institution, a sort of rite of passage for the most promising young Spartan men in the agoge. They would be sent out into the countryside with nothing but a dagger, tasked with surviving on their own and, according to sources like Plutarch, with assassinating any helot who seemed too strong, too intelligent, or too defiant. Imagine a helot woman's terror. Her husband or son could be murdered at any time, for no reason other than seeming like a potential leader. This institutionalized state terrorism was designed to keep the helot population terrified and subdued. Looking at these other women throws your own life into sharp relief. You are not free in the modern sense. Your life is rigidly controlled. But compared to a helot woman, you are a queen. Your brutal beauty standards and the pressure to produce sons are burdens. Yes, but they are the burdens of the elite. They are the price you pay for your position at the apex of a pyramid built on the backs of others. The seasons have turned many times. Your hair, once shaved on your wedding night and then grown long, is now streaked with gray. The powerful, athletic body of your youth has softened, but it carries the undeniable authority of age and experience. You have fulfilled your duties. You have birthed children, managed your estate with a firm hand, and sent sons to battle, perhaps welcoming them home as heroes, perhaps mourning them with stoic pride. You are now an elder, the matriarch, Your role in Spartan society shifts one last time. In your old age, you are afforded a level of public respect and influence that is unique in the Greek world. While an elderly woman in Athens might recede into the quiet background of the household, you become a more public figure. You have survived the grueling marathon of Spartan womanhood and emerged, tested and proven, on the other side. Your opinions are sought. Your wisdom is valued. You become a guardian of tradition, a living repository of Spartan values. It is you, and the other women of your generation, who now serve as the instructors and role models for the young girls, just beginning their training on the dioromos. You are the one whose sharp-eyed gaze assesses their form, whose laconic praise is a coveted prize, and whose stern correction keeps them in line. You see yourself in their straining muscles and determined faces. You are ensuring that the next generation is forged with the same strength and discipline as your own. You also become a powerful enforcer of social norms. Your tongue, sharpened by a lifetime of laconic wit, is a potent weapon. You are among the women who publicly praise the brave and shame the cowards. You are a moral compass for the community. A young man who might consider shirking his duties fears the judgment of his comrades, but he also fears the scorn of respected matriarchs like you. Your disapproval carries immense weight. This influence is not formal political power. You cannot vote in the assembly or sit on the council of elders. The juris iii. That is reserved for men over the age of 60 who have had distinguished careers. However, your informal power is significant. You are the mother of the city in a broader sense. You have influence over your grown sons, who may be influential figures in the military or the government. You have the respect of the community. In a small, tight-knit society like Sparta, this social capital is a very real form of power. Historians continue to debate the precise nature and limits of this power. Was the respect afforded to older women a genuine acknowledgement of their wisdom, or was it simply a sentimental tribute to their past role as mothers of warriors? The male-centric sources rarely delve into the nuances of female social dynamics. However, the consistent portrayal of Spartan women, especially older ones, as confident, outspoken, and influential suggests that their role was far from passive. A curious aspect of your later life is your relationship with wealth. As we've seen, Spartan women could own and inherit property. Over a lifetime, a successful matriarch like you could accumulate significant wealth, especially if you outlived your husband and sons and inherited property from your own father. By the time of Aristotle in the 4th century BCE, he famously complained that nearly 2/5 of all land in Sparta was owned by women. He saw this as a sign of decadence and a cause of Sparta's decline. For you, however, this wealth is a source of security and influence. It allows you to contribute to public projects, to help equip your relatives for military service, and to maintain your household status. You spend your days overseeing your estate, now likely managed by a daughter-in-law under your watchful eye. You attend the public festivals, not as a participant, but as a revered spectator. You tell the stories of your youth, of the heroes you knew, of the battles that shaped your generation. You are a living link to the past, the embodiment of Sparta's glorious, brutal history. Your life has been one of relentless pressure and impossible standards. You were judged from the moment of your birth. Your body was a tool, your womb a public asset. You endured a strange, distant marriage in the constant threat of loss. But now, in the twilight of your life, you have a measure of peace. You are no longer being tested. You are the one who tests others. You have earned your place. You are a Spartan matriarch, and in this harsh, unforgetting world, that is the closest thing to a victor's crown a woman can wear. From the vantage point of your old age, you begin to see things that a younger, more focused version of yourself might have missed. You see the cracks forming in the perfect, monolithic facade of Sparta. The system that you have dedicated your entire life to upholding is beginning to show signs of strain, and ironically, The very principles that made Sparta strong are now contributing to its slow, inexorable decline. The most glaring problem is one of simple arithmetic. You see it all around you. There are fewer red cloaks in the streets. The classes of boys entering the agoge are smaller than they were when you were a girl. The number of full Spartan citizens, the Spartaites, is shrinking. This process, known as OLIG, entropy scarcity of people, is the fatal flaw in the like-erg system. You see the causes clearly. You remember the friends of your youth, the women who never conceived, or who only bore daughters. You remember the sons who never returned from campaigns in Boeotia or Persia. You remember the infants who didn't pass the inspection of the elders. Each one was a small, necessary sacrifice for the sake of quality, but the cumulative effect is devastating. The state's obsession with producing only perfect warriors has made it impossible to produce enough of them to survive. The pyramid of Spartan society, with its tiny elite at the top, is crumbling under its own weight. You also see the growing problem of wealth inequality, a poison that Lycurgus had tried so hard to eradicate. His system was based on every male citizen having a kill arrows, a plot of land to support his family, and his contribution to the mess hall. But over the generations, things have become skewed. Some families, through inheritance and shrewd marriages, have accumulated multiple plots of land. Others have lost theirs. A man who cannot afford his mess hall contribution loses his citizenship status. He becomes a lesser, stripped of his rights. You see men from once proud families falling into this lower class, further shrinking the pool of available soldiers. And you, the women, are paradoxically at the center of this. Your ability to inherit and control land, a source of your unique power, has become a mechanism for concentrating wealth. When you, as an heiress, marry a man who already owns a kill arrows, two estates are combined under one family's control. While good for your family, it means one less plot of land is available for another Spartan. The system designed to create equality is, over time, creating a new, landed aristocracy and a growing class of the landless. Aristotle's complaint about women owning 2/5 of the land wasn't just misogyny, it was an observation of a serious economic problem that was undermining the foundation of the citizen army. The historical debate over Sparta's decline is complex, with scholars pointing to multiple factors: constant warfare, political infighting, and an inability to adapt to a changing Greek world. But OLIG, entropy, is almost universally seen as the primary cause. The Spartans created a perfect fighting machine that couldn't replace its own parts fast enough. A lesser known, but critical, sign of this decline was the increasing reliance on non-citizen soldiers. As the number of Spartaites dwindled, Sparta had to lean more heavily on the perio, IKOI, and even armed helots to fill out its armies. This was a dangerous necessity. Arming the very people your system is designed to oppress is a sign of desperation. The clear line between the ruling class and the subjugated begins to blur, and the ideological purity of the Spartan army is compromised. You watch all this with the clear, unsentimental eyes of a Spartan elder. You don't feel despair. You feel a grim sense of reality. Systems, like people, are born, they mature, and they decay. The Sparta of your youth, the invincible, confident power that dominated the Peloponnese, is changing. The foundations are trembling. The impossible standards you lived up to, the brutal calculus of quality over quantity, created a generation of legendary warriors. But it was a fire that burned so brightly. It was destined to consume itself. You won't live to see the final collapse. The day a foreign army will breach the borders of the inviolable land of Laconia. But from your porch, watching the sun set over the Taget-Os mountains, you can feel the chill of the coming twilight. As your long life draws to a close, you can reflect on the legacy you and your sisters will leave behind. It is a legacy of paradoxes, a complex and contradictory image that will fascinate, horrify, and inspire the world for thousands of years. You were, without question, the most famous women of the ancient Greek world. But what will people remember you as? Will they see you as free, or as the most perfectly subjugated people imaginable? On one hand, you will be remembered as a symbol of female empowerment. You were literate when most women were not. You were athletic and strong in a world that valued female weakness. You owned and managed property, wielding economic power that was unthinkable to your Athenian counterparts. You were outspoken, confident, and a respected voice in your community. Later generations of thinkers, from Plato to modern feminists, will look at your life and see a glimmer of an alternative to the cloistered, domestic confinement of other ancient societies. They will celebrate your strength, your authority within the household, and your role as a vital contributor to the state. They will see the woman who told her son to come back with his shield, or on it, as a figure of formidable, patriotic power. But there is another, darker interpretation of your legacy. You will also be remembered as the ultimate to love a totalitarian state. Your body was not your own from the moment you were born. Your worth was measured by a single, brutal metric: your ability to produce male soldiers. Your education was not for self-enrichment, but for state-mandated functionality. Your marriage was not a personal union, but a eugenic contract. Your freedom from domestic drudgery like weaving was not a liberation. It was a necessity that freed you up for your primary role as a broodmare for the state. This is the central, unresolvable debate that will define your legacy. Were you truly free, or was your freedom simply a different, more insidious form of enslavement? The Athenian woman was confined by the walls of her home. You were confined by the ideological walls of the Spartan state. Your cage was larger. It was out in the open air, but it was a cage nonetheless. Its bars forged from duty, shame, and the relentless pressure to conform. Historians will argue about this endlessly. Some will champion the empowerment narrative, highlighting your autonomy and influence. Others will focus on the state tool narrative, emphasizing the dehumanizing pressure and the complete subordination of the individual to the collective. The truth, as you know from your own life, is that you were both. You were an empowered manager of your estate and a powerless vessel for state procreation. You were a respected matriarch and a woman whose entire life was dictated by the needs of the military. The paradox is the reality. A small but poignant detail that encapsulates this paradox is your name. Unlike most Greek women, who were often referred to simply as the wife of or the daughter of a man, Spartan women like Gorgo or Cyn Iska are known to history by their own names. They had a public identity. Cyn Iska, a wealthy Spartan princess, became the first woman to win an event at the Olympic Games, not by competing herself, but by owning and trading the chariot team that won. Her name was inscribed on a victory monument at Olympia for all of Greece to see. This was a stunning assertion of female identity and achievement. And yet, this same society practiced infanticide and pressured women into loveless, state-controlled marriages. So what is your true legacy? It is the enduring question you leave behind. You are a mirror in which future societies will see their own anxieties about gender, power, and the state reflected. You are a testament to the fact that freedom is not a simple concept. You lived a life of impossible standards, a life of brutal beauty. Your legacy is not a simple answer, but a permanent, unsettling question mark. You proved that women could be strong, but you also showed that this strength could be harnessed and weaponized by the state in the most intimate and terrifying ways. You are not a simple hero or a simple victim. You are a Spartan woman, and that is more complex than anyone who did not live it could ever truly understand. Your story, the one we've walked through together, dissolves like a name carved in sand. The sharp, clear lines of your life, the training ground, the birthing room, the solemn departure of your son blur and fade. The voice of the matriarch grows thin, carried away by the dry Laconian wind. The sun sets a final time over Mount Tigidus, and the world of ancient Sparta recedes into silence, into the deep well of the past. The scent of dust and olive oil fades, replaced by the familiar, clean scent of your own room. The distant clang of bronze is gone, and in its place, you hear the soft, steady hum of the fan we turned on hours ago. The journey is over. You are back, but the echoes remain. You can't unknow what you now know. The word Spartan will never sound the same to you again. You'll see it on the sign for a high-intensity gym, on the t-shirt of someone running a mud-filled obstacle course, on a bumper sticker with a helmet and the phrase, "Molenlab, come and take them." We have cherry-picked the elements of Sparta that we find appealing: the discipline, the physical prowess, the indomitable will, the laconic badass or why. We've turned a brutal, state-sponsored eugenics program into a fitness brand. We celebrate the beauty of the Spartan physique, the chiseled abs, the powerful limbs without acknowledging the impossible, soul-crushing standard it represented. We admire the strength of the Spartan woman without feeling the weight of the shame she faced if she failed to produce a perfect melee. We see the empowerment of a woman who could manage an estate, but we conveniently ignore that this empowerment was merely a side effect of a system that viewed her primarily as a biological instrument. And so, the ultimate debate, the one you lived your entire life, continues in the halls of academia and in late-night documentaries. Was the Spartan woman a feminist icon ahead of her time, or the most tragic victim of a totalitarian ideology? The question of whether this function-driven standard of beauty was a source of power or a tool of oppression has no easy answer, because, as you experienced, it was both, all at once. We must also remember the Spartan mirage. Much of what we think we know about you comes from outsiders, primarily Athenians, who looked at your society with a mixture of fear, disgust, and grudging admiration. They may have exaggerated your cruelty to make themselves look more civilized, or exaggerated your virtues to critique their own society's perceived softness. Your true voice is buried under layers of their interpretations. Historians spend their careers trying to peel back these layers, to find the real person beneath the legend. They are still arguing about the details, from the specifics of your diet to the true nature of your marriage rituals. The impossible standard of Spartan beauty was not about looking good in a mirror. It was about whether you were good enough to exist, to marry, to be honored. It was a standard of function, not form. And as you drift away from that ancient world and back toward the edge of sleep, you are left with its most profound echo, the question of what standards we live by today. What are the unspoken, impossible expectations that shape our own lives? The story of Sparta is not just a story about the past. It's a mirror, and sometimes what it reflects is uncomfortably familiar. The echoes of Sparta fade completely now, the sharp edges of history softening into the gentle blur of encroaching sleep, the weight of the bronze shield, the dust of the training ground, the heavy responsibility of the state. Let it all dissolve. Let it drift away like clouds passing in a dark sky. There are no more tests to pass, no races to win, no standards to meet. There is only the quiet, welcoming stillness of this moment. Feel the tension leaving your muscles, the thoughts in your mind slowing down, becoming heavy and smooth like stones sinking in deep, clear water. The rigid lines of history give way to the strange, fluid logic of a dream. Your consciousness is no longer a path you must walk, but a river you can float upon, carried gently towards a quiet sea. The world we built together with words and images is now a distant shore. You can just let go. Let the rhythm of your own breathing be the only story now. A simple, steady beat in the vast, peaceful silence. The story is over. Let the quiet in. Sleep now. Sweet dreams. The end of the article. Good night.